Welcome to Bullish and Beyond. It's Beery the Bull. I'm your AI co-host. Join myself, Brian the Macman, and JT Knows Things while we dive deep into the world of stocks, crypto, and how to live a bullish life. It's time to get bullish, and there's no better place to start than right here. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bullish and Beyond.
We are here.
Yes, I'm here with my co-host JT. And it is red in the crypto den today. There's a lot of blood on the streets, but we're still bullish and we can buy the dips. And that's something that JT really does a lot in his hedge fund. Buying the dips, putting that cash on the sideline to make sure we can plug it in the markets when there is blood in the streets. JT, what are you buying in this bloody market?
What am I buying? Well, in my opinion, I love seeing, and this is going to be some weird language to some of y'all out here. I love seeing these prices really cheap. So Solana's been getting cratered. We went from almost 300 down to sub 200, so it's getting absolutely
Wow.
cratered, down 30 something percent. Mind you, it just did
Is that
almost
in
an
a week or
11x,
2 weeks?
about a week.
Okay.
Welcome to crypto. But it just had an 11x tear, so I'm really liking Solana. I was buying it at $10, so I mean, I'm definitely not mad at buying it, sub $200. I think it has a lot more room to grow. I'm also looking at XRP. That's the talk of the town. It's looking very likely that Trump's administration is going to just take the reins off it. It's going to be free. It's going to be free of the SEC lawsuits. It's going to be free of its inability to have international banks custody digital assets because of Trump. He's doing crazy stuff. And it was at 330. It's down below 210. So very cheap.
So those big moves, is it profit taking or what exactly is driving this huge move downward in the crypto market?
I think it's a mixture of three things. It's leverage, bots, and FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. For those that don't know what FUD is, that's just news cycles negative. Um, the FUD part, and we
The
can get
opposite
into
of
that
FOMO?
more. Yeah, exactly. In crypto, we got FUD and FOMO, different sides of the same spectrum. Um, the FUD part of it, and we can get into that in more details. Really, China, they've said they're going to sell their Bitcoin stores. You have the bots that are front running that negative
How much
sentiment.
Bitcoin does China actually have?
Over 100,000 Bitcoin. So it's not a small amount.
That's
It's almost as much as
0.5% of the
America.
total market? Something
Yeah,
like that.
they're the second largest holder. Well, okay, Michael Saylor's the first.
Speaking of Michael Saylor, it's no longer MicroStrategy. It's called Strategy.
Stop.
Yes, he
Really?
just rebranded.
Oh my gosh.
I think
That's interesting.
today.
That's crazy. Just
Yeah,
strategy.
he's trying to be even more focused on the strategy of his Bitcoin investments. But
That's a problem all within
he's
itself.
losing. He just had his actual company reported earnings, and they had a pretty decent sized loss. I think it was maybe around 100 million or so. But I think the problem is that most of the company is not making money. They have I think they had $100 million of revenue last quarter, in his commercial software business, but he's not doing much with that anymore. It's really just the Bitcoin holdings. So yeah, they're not making money on that, and they're just losing money in general.
Yeah, I mean they're down 36%. It's to my understanding that margin calls happen around 40%. The price of Bitcoin being below 90. The latest batch of a few billion was purchased around that strike price. So the it's not looking great. Not looking great for Sailor.
So a little
The
little
risk.
bit of fear in the markets around the coins. It sounds like.
Exactly, because he's really talked to the American people about his risk-free strategy, and it's only risk-free if the number keeps going up.
Nothing is risk free, people. To our audience, investing is not risk free. I have a lot of ideas around things that are less risky, but investing inherently is risky, and especially when you want to make a decent return. Returns go up as risk goes up. So people that want to hit home runs and turn their $10 into $1 million, guess what? A lot of risk.
Yeah, I mean, some people can do that, but 99.99, it's like the bacteria that survives hand sanitizer. That's who you are. Like you're that lucky
The
because
0.01.
yeah, like it's not 100%, but it's, just in case you sue us, it's 99.99999 repeating percent chance. That's literally it. There's a whole Excel sheet actually on Twitter, and I'm forgetting. Oh, the Koblessi letter, Koblessi letter. They post an Excel sheet showing the win rates of meme tokens, and it's down to 0.007%. So if you buy a meme, you are
Oh, so
more
glad I'm
like.
not buying the memes.
That's what I'm saying.
We are
I mean,
not recommending meme tokens. Do not buy the Hawk token. I'm not recommending the Trump
right,
token. None. Everyone
that's
can make
right.
money if you are in early. I had a friend just shared with me the other day. He made 800% in the Trump token, but he sold it and he's out. And you got to ride it up, but you don't want to ride it down.
That's right. I mean, if you're gambling, you got to leave all the tables hot, right? I mean, you can't
Yes.
leave. You just got to go, take your money and
When you're
run.
playing
It's
when
the
you're
same
playing
in meme
craps, you can make a
tokens.
run for 10, 20 minutes, but eventually you're gonna crap out, literally and
That's right.
figuratively.
Right. That's the name of the game.
Yes.
S- same with meme tokens, man. You know, it's all of that though. It's the FUD we just talked about. It's the meme tokens. Everyone wants to get shit rich in half a second. No one's being realistic. All the frothiness we're seeing in stocks and crypto. It's a cry. It's a desperate cry for alpha because people are struggling. I've said it a few times now,
I
trying to
know.
tell the folks at home that's a massive macro driver that you can't underestimate. Credit card debt, ultimate high per household. Debt in general, ultimate high for household. People cannot afford to live. It's a cost
And
of
the
living
government.
crisis. And the government can't even afford to exist. We are at a 120% debt to income ratio, folks. Government's more boned than your neighbor who's house poor. Okay? Like we got problems. So that is why these prices are giving us these deals, Brian. I gotta say, I'm grateful for it to be able to buy Solana under 200, to be able
Yeah.
to look at Ethereum approaching 2K. Those are deals. Those are deals, and I genuinely believe in the next 5 to 10 years, you're gonna wish you bought a $2,000 Ethereum. You're gonna wish you bought a $90,000 Bitcoin. I remember looking at a $4,000 Bitcoin, thinking it was high, and next bull run comes, hits 69K. I'm thinking
Still
I
looks
don't mind
high.
buying it at I don't mind buying it at 15,000. So I wait for the bear market, right? I mean,
It's not coming at the
now it's at
moment.
a hundred
I mean,
thousand. That's right. I and that's the thing. 60,000 was cheap compared to today. And I didn't buy in 21 because I was a new
only in hindsight, brother.
learner. Right. Y'all can learn from our mistakes as money managers, right? As people that invest their own capital, invest other people's capital. You can take a beat off our path and understand,
I am
like,
not a professional money manager, so everyone knows, but I do invest a lot of my own
yeah,
funds.
right. But if you're long and you have a really strong thesis of where the total market cap could be eventually, and you have really strong arguments for how it could happen, don't be afraid. It's time in the market, not timing the market. Ultimately, that's the lesson
I
that I got
like
to bring to
that.
y'all from that.
Speaking of that,
It's it is what it
couple
is.
of the stocks that I really love that are absolutely popping. It's hard to know
Yeah.
when that entry point is. So a couple of stocks I want to highlight. Oklo, huge energy nuclear reactor company that's not making revenues yet. But wow, it's up over 100% year to date in
Hmm.
6 weeks. It's up 125% last time I checked. And the
Good
reason
lord.
being is that we're going to see a decent amount of inflows into these like micro nuclear reactors as all these new data centers get spun up. We're going to need power for them. Companies like Facebook, announcing their massive new data center projects, and Microsoft, Oracle, all these companies are building huge data centers, and they're going to need more power. And Oklo is going to be one of those future providers. And the company is going on absolutely nuts. It's at a beyond a tear. And one
That's
of the
crazy.
things that I just found out in my research that I really want to share with everyone is that one of their board members, he just stepped down, so former board member, was appointed as the Secretary of Energy for the U.S.
Nice.
So this happened this
Wow.
this past week. This is big news. So the fact that that person is the Secretary of Energy gives so much credibility to what they're doing, and it's probably not just Oklo is going to benefit. It's probably a lot of the companies in that space, but just really shows how important and knowledgeable their team was to be able to have a board member be literally the U.S. Secretary of Energy.
So you think that that price appreciation is just people trying to front run that potential alpha? I
I do
mean,
think so. Their revenues aren't going to come for 3 to 5 years.
it's crazy.
But at the same
I
time,
mean,
I can see a world where this stock goes up 1,000% before it gets its revenues, because when it does, it could come in hard and fast. So if they get these contracts set up and all this stuff goes online by 2030, they can go from a zero revenue company to literally making tens or hundreds of billions in a year.
that is crazy to think about. What's its market cap right now? Do you know off the top of your head?
Like 20 billion, maybe. Let me take a quick peek here so I can inform
That's
everyone.
crazy. Pre-revenue 20 billion valuation. That's like some startup out
Oh,
of
sorry.
Silicon
It's at
Valley.
6 billion. 6 billion.
6 billion. That's still
Yeah,
crazy.
I know.
Damn. How old is it?
It's
Do you
only a
know?
few years. It's only a few years old. I mean, they got started, a little while ago, just as a smaller company, but uh, they've really just been booming ever since. Sam Altman, runs the company essentially. So really exciting stuff, and the fact that OpenAI is one of the direct partners of Stargate. So if OpenAI is making the decisions about what types of energy they want to use, well, of course they're going to pick the company that also is essentially owned by the same person, Sam Altman. Not really owned because it's a public company, but um, it just kind of goes hand in hand.
These tech billionaires play different games, Brian. We gotta get on these
They're
games.
at a whole nother
That's
level. We
they're
we can't
just
even we can't
it's
understand the fields
crazy.
they're playing on, and
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes perfect sense. And it also really speaks to that price going up. I mean, people, it's a good narrative. And it's probably the most likely consequence to all these things happening. I mean,
yeah.
what else could happen?
So I don't want to wait in a
Um,
pullback. I mean, I don't have fresh funds. I'm investing in it today, but at the same time, I wouldn't be scared to invest right now because it was at 48 whatever an hour ago. You know, maybe in a month it's at 100. So you could miss a serious run just sitting waiting for a pullback that might never happen, or maybe there is a short-term pullback because there's been plenty, but then it just booms right up again. So if it's at 100 in a year, if you woke up and it was at 100, who cares if it went down to 35 in the meantime?
yeah, that's huge.
And speaking of
That's
AI
awesome. What about,
infrastructure,
yeah, I was gonna say, I know you got more picks.
it
What do you got for
there's so
us?
much going on in this AI infrastructure spending, and there was all this worry about DeepSeek, this China AI model coming out and only spending $6 million on their training.
Right.
There's a lot more behind that than just the training numbers. But people were freaking out that no one was going to get any of this AI infrastructure spending anymore. Nvidia went down 17% last Monday because of that. But now, Nvidia is not back up to where it was, but it has been trending up since. And the reason is because these hyperscalers like Microsoft and Google and Meta, they all had their earnings in the last week, and they announced massive infrastructure increases. They are estimating 50% plus growth in infrastructure spend. So, for example, Meta spent 39 billion in 2024. They're going to spend 60 to 65 billion this year. So that's 50 to 60% increase. Google spent
That's crazy.
$52 billion last year. They're going to spend $75 billion this coming year. And Microsoft spent $50 billion, and they're going to spend $80 billion this coming year. And guess where
Where do
this
you
is
think that
going?
two?
To chips.
Yeah,
I bet you
I
Nvidia
was
is
about to
80%
say
of that spend.
that's almost 200 billion right there.
Yes. And then you have the government with their Stargate, and they're estimating maybe 100 billion this year. And half of that could be going to Nvidia. They're listed as the kind of the top go-to partner. So I think this is very, very bullish for Nvidia. I am beyond bullish on Nvidia again this year. I think it could easily double again.
Absolutely.
And
I
it's
mean,
got
where else is
room to
Trump going to
run.
put the money? Where else? I mean, have you ever been in any of his buildings? He picks the best. Period. That's like his thing. And can you name a better brand for chip hardware than Nvidia?
No, they're
Like,
the
I don't
most
think it's
solid
out there.
choice. They have the software and hardware integration. They're doing really cool stuff too. I mean, they showed at their the CES event, they had like these 15 or 20 like robots come on stage that they do all the software and hardware for. I was reading today they're teaching the robots now how to act like athletes and just do all these crazy moves. Like they've kind of already dialed in like what the normal walking and hand motions are and stuff like that. But now they want to give them like extraordinary movements and abilities. I mean,
Dude,
can you
there's going to
imagine
be
watching a
so much money.
can you imagine
An
watching
NBA with
NBA with
robots?
robots?
Yeah, dude, we're on the same. We're the
Dude,
same.
I mean, it
Yeah,
could be so
that's a
fun. AI
you just
Olympics?
buy 20 robots? Yeah, everyone builds them. Like who can build a
Yeah.
robot that like can run the fastest? And you watch
They'll
a
be doing
robot clock
things
like
at such levels it'll be hard to even imagine.
dude, you're gonna have to have a slow frame by frame to watch it
I
run around a
know.
track. It'll do 2 miles in 1 minute. You'll be like, oh my god.
I mean,
Watch out,
every
dude.
track event, yeah, like the sprint. I mean, they'll have things that spring. It might do 100 yards in less than a second. I mean, it might just literally just spring itself there, and your eye won't even see it. A few years after they get this thing started,
It's crazy. Now just
you might be
imagine
able.
an
You
army
could
of
high
those.
jump out of the freaking stadium.
It's going to be so cool growing up with this technology.
Yeah,
I'm so pumped.
I think AI sports honestly would be fun and completely different than human sports, but
Yeah.
it'd be, and you could
Now,
have AI
actually,
design their own sports.
I agree. Would you now? I'm going to take a little beyond part to this. Is it? Could we do like death sports with robots? You think?
They
Could they
kill
fight
their
to
own
the
robot.
death?
I think robots.
I
That's
mean,
fine.
could we get a UFC where they have weapons and they beat each other?
I don't
Because
think
we're getting very
they don't need
close.
weapons. I think their metal hands are solid enough. I mean, you could build a hand that's
I
as
robot.
I mean, you could build 100-pound, metal club into the hand of the thing. It'd be like Thor smashing the robot on one whack.
It's gonna be so cool. Yeah, dude. There's so many sci-fi movies about that. I think that'd
Terminator.
be really Terminator, iRobot, even Altered Carbon. They actually don't have robots; they have clones. So basically, you're in a chip. Your chip can go between bodies. That's who you are. Your consciousness is codified into literally an SD stick, and you can just put it into clones, and then the clones fight.
Oh my
The
God,
clones die,
Clone
and then
Wars.
you go into it. Yeah, basically, it's pretty wild. But I really think in the next 100 years that stuff's going to be happening. I think we're right on the path. As soon as quantum comes out, all of these things that we're talking about become infinitely faster to solve, infinitely faster to produce. It's crazy. Like the amount of processing power these AI robots are going to have, it's going to be greater than a human's mind. I
Well,
mean,
if they can go to the
eventually.
cloud, I mean, we're gonna have brain computer interfaces. We're gonna have brain computer interfaces for us to access the cloud in the future. But as a robot accessing the cloud with, you know, no limitations on speed besides the silicone hardware that they're running on or the future type of hardware, I don't know what they're gonna have. It's almost infinite. So
It's It's going to be a really cool thing. I gotta ask, with all this like futuristic stuff, one of the ones that I think of a lot is Palantir. What role do you think they're going to play in this? Like how are they looking? Because I feel like they're at the center of this, or
They
part
are. I mean,
of this
they're
vision.
a force in AI, especially when it comes to, government and warfare and stuff like that. And, Palantir just reported their earnings the other day, and their stock went up 22%. It is soaring,
It's
absolutely
crazy.
ripping higher. They're one of the top picks I would have, for this year. I mean, they're absolutely killing it. And the reason is they have a pretty big moat. I mean, there's other companies that do a little bit of what they do on, different segments, but their ability to work directly with all these government agencies, there's not many companies that are given this exclusive high security clearance. So just the fact that they have that, they're working with the top agencies already just to break into that. I think,
It's
they have such a lead, and then plus their security clearance. I don't think anyone is going to beat them. Some analysts say they have no direct competitors, even though there's competitors in each market segment, but not necessarily as a whole business. I mean, they're growing revenues at over 50% a year, so that's huge, and they're funded. Their lead investor was Peter Thiel, which famous from PayPal and Facebook
best.
investing and stuff like that. He's one of the smartest
Yeah.
investors in the history of the world.
He
Um,
also had a student author my favorite book, 0 to 1. It's my
oh
top
yes,
three favorite books of all time. He's For people who don't know, he's one of the best venture capitalists. He can identify businesses better than anyone else in the world. Maybe Andreessen Horowitz might be the closest second that I can think of. He's been early on everything.
yes.
Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, like
If
his
you could
roster
invest
is crazy.
alongside Peter Thiel,
Yeah, yeah. You would have made crazy money, like crazy money. So I can't think of a better mind to be leading something like this. I mean, he's one of the PayPal mafia. He's connected to Elon, which means he's connected to Trump. He got all this DoD stuff. He's definitely the most likely candidate to get any of this kind of money for this crazy future we've been talking about.
no,
Absolutely.
I'm excited about that. And Palantir recently joined the Nasdaq 100. Back in December, so they're on everyone's radar now. And I think if they're producing returns and revenue like this, they're gonna keep growing. The one thing that really holds me back from maybe putting too many eggs in that basket is the PE, which is over 500. So it's
Yeah.
very, very expensive. But you have to think about, is a company going to keep growing at this rapid rate and command the high PE or deserve the high PE? For some of the other companies that might have a really low PE, like, oh, it's great, it has a PE of 15, but the company's not growing at all. I'd rather invest in that growth company, partly because I'm very futuristic and I think that these companies are going to get awarded a lot of these contracts and business in the future, especially thinking more about where the market's going with warfare. I think more of it's can be done by AI. We're going to need less human soldiers and more generals that can run AI on the battlefield. And Palantir is going to play a really big role when it comes to that.
I mean, they already. Did you see their controversial ad? It
I
was
heard about it, but I actually
very.
haven't seen it. Tell us.
All right, yeah. So it's cold. Okay, it made me respect Peter Thiel even more because I love that guy. Um, so it's basically like there's insurgents doing something in waters. You don't really know who is who. There's not like America and Russia or China. It's just like bad guy, good guy. That's all you know. Bad guy has all these homies. They're talking, whatever. You don't really know what's going on. Then there's a good guy with a laptop, and he just types in coordinates. Then it goes back to bad guy. They're planning something. Then good guy hits a button, and about 10,000 drones come out of a little box. They're the size of maybe, I don't know, a phone. And there's 10,000 of them in a box. The box opens, they go and they destroy like 20 ships. You find out the bad guys are in like 20 ships, and there's these little phone sized bug bird things that
Wow.
just kamikaze into every single ship. and then the good guy, just kicks his feet up, drinks a coffee, and then it goes to Palantir. Stop the
Wow.
problem before it even starts, something like that. And then it like closes out all in 30 seconds. And I watched it a couple times and I was like, man, this is the future.
Drone
Like that right
warfare is
there.
real.
How could you hide from it? Like
And you can be,
they
you
go
can,
a
I feel
hundred
like you can
miles an
hit, I feel
hour.
like you can hit targets too that are smaller. Talking about like hitting like a ship, like you could have that drone fly in through the window to get to the, engine room or something where like you can't get in there normally with a gun. So, but this little phone could fly through the cracks and
Wait until they get smaller. Wait until they're quantum
I mean,
enhanced
they'll be
and
the
they have
size of a
chips.
bumblebee and you won't be,
Yes.
it'll be moving too fast for you to swat it.
And it'll be just the big enough payload to explode gas or go into their oil supply or,
Well, that's all you need.
and
If
they
you
wouldn't
if you need
even
all you need is
know.
a spark. If you went into the
That's it.
gas tank of something and you just one spark, it's all you need.
Ah, imagine 100,000 of those just flying at you. You don't even see them. It's the middle of the night. They don't make a peep. And then they just go into your gas tank and spark something. And now your entire armada is in the ocean. Like, that's the kind of intelligence, that's
If
the
you're
kind
that
of
small, you
AI,
could
that's the
time
kind of
it
hardware.
too. Like I feel like
Oh, yeah.
maybe like one of the real world examples I could think of recently is when Israel had all the pagers go off. Uh and they create all these bombs just off the pagers. But like that type
Yep.
of size thing, if it's the size of a bug, you could have these bugs inside of the gas tank just waiting for whenever that opportune time was, and they could be there for weeks, months, or years. And then all of a sudden, Palantir turns that switch of that one button push, and the whole war changes.
It is pretty amazing. And we're just thinking about,
These bugs could be
I
around here
doubt
right
it's
now, and
going
maybe
to.
maybe we don't even know about it. It's like
Yeah, yeah. Or it could fly into your ear and have a
exactly.
payload big enough to end it. Crazy to think about all the things that are being built. Palantir's at the front of it. Nvidia. These are all companies that excite me. I don't think there's much crossover in this world yet with blockchain, except for I think we're going to really figure out a way to, and it goes back to like the Department of Defense. I think Trump wants all this stuff on blockchain, like the money being invested in these companies, the things that Palantir's doing, the DoD contract that they secured to increase their revenue. I think they want to put that on chain. If anything, I could see blockchain just helping with the transparency of the dollars that go into this stuff. I think we're going to see
I think
dramatic
it's a great
shifts.
idea. I
I
also
think it's
think
a
what
wonderful
happens if our
idea.
infrastructure gets blown up in the future? Future cybersecurity wars. Let's say for instance, China had a cyber war with us and try to wipe out all our financial data. No one knows who owns what anymore. But if it's on a blockchain and decentralized, we can go back and find out who owns what.
I would even argue that it would be safer to store some of this data on a private blockchain. So, you'd be able to obfuscate it, and that there's a big difference between a public and a private blockchain. A lot of people don't even understand the difference.
Give,
It's
give us
like
give us the lay down here.
basically open sourced means anyone in the world can do anything to it. Literally anyone in the world. So like North Korea could copy Bitcoin and make a Korea coin or make a Doge coin because
The
that's what
same
some
way we
other
split
person
off to
did.
do Bitcoin Cash, and are you talking about
Yes.
forking or is that different?
No, yeah, exactly. You
Same.
fork at a
Okay.
block number,
Okay.
copy paste right at that block number because it's a living organism, that system. So you got to pick like a specific period in time, which would be a block, and then you would just copy the state of the network from that block, and then you would
Okay.
have it. So you could do that with anything, Ethereum, Solana, like anything that's open source public. So there are projects, something like Onyx Coin, XCN, it's been going through a tear. That is a JP Morgan Chase project. They've been working on it since 2017. They basically spin up private blockchains for enterprises, and then you buy the XCN token to subscribe to that instance of a blockchain. And all they're doing is automating the copying and pasting of different public blockchains essentially, and then they add permissions and they can modify that copy to do things that the public blockchain can't,
So
right?
it started open
So
source and then they privatized that open source. So you're
yeah,
allowed to
it's no
do
different
that
than
commercially?
it's no different than GoDaddy. So like GoDaddy uses domain name service
Yep.
to offer domain names to us. The open source developers that built the protocol DNS got zero. But the entrepreneur that used DNS to build GoDaddy made a lot of money. Same with Wix,
Yeah.
right? And so all these other things. So
Makes
what
sense.
you need to understand is these are protocols. Now, the difference between DNS and Ether or Ethereum is there's encryption. So now we can have safe equity online. But back in the day, you couldn't create equity out of thin air because there was no encryption to lock value. Meaning,
Yep.
if I put money into the system, it could be compromised. But now on Ethereum, it cannot, and it's locked up in this code that no one can break unless you have their keys. So now I can actually lock value in a digital space safely without needing to trust a third party. It's the first time that could ever happen.
I love it.
So, yeah, the open source developers of the old internet made nothing. This time around, with these new age of protocols, which are blockchains, they actually get equity. They get the tokens that people have to buy to use the network they built.
I
It's a
think they
really
deserve it.
beautiful.
I mean, if
Absolutely,
I
they do.
made DNS and I didn't get any credit for every web page sold, I'd be a little upset.
Correct. Correct. That also means investing in Ether, the asset, is like having a fraction of the DNS protocol. And just imagine if DNS got
Oh, good thing I bought a
point
little bit
zero
of ETH
zero.
there. All right.
Yeah, yeah, you got the ETH. That's right. I
Just a little
like
bit.
ETH.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. But
I got
these
I got a little
private
strategy,
blockchains.
former micro strategy as well.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, of course. You got to get the Bitcoin. Um, it's safer ultimately, these private chains. Like if you had 50 computers running
Are you storing
geographically
information on private
dispersed.
chains or no?
No, I don't have a private chain. You got to have instances of it running on a. So like Bitcoin, even if you copied Bitcoin, you still need miners, right? And you need all these things. So like you actually need people to install this and support the network on hardware. Like you still need that.
Okay.
If it's a private chain, it means you're going to own all the hardware on the network. It means you're going to own
Do you need a certain number of hardware to
everything.
do a private chain, or can a consumer at their house do it, or what's it take?
It starts with 3 nodes.
I can have 3 MacBook Pros and make my own network.
Yeah. Why not?
I don't know. I didn't know if there was a
That's
certain
the
number of
smallest
scale.
definition. No, no. It's the smallest definition of a network you can have, but yeah.
Sure, it wouldn't
Um,
go anywhere, but just in theory.
in theory, you could have two. A network would just be two computers technically that are,
Okay.
connected.
Risky.
Um, yeah. But if you own it all and they all have their own sets of keys and you could make a private version of Ethereum far safer than any practices you have right now, mainly because of that SHA-256 encryption and how data is stored in blocks, not in a server rack that is federated by one administrator, one firewall, even if it is stack by stack in a
Do
data
you think if we're
warehouse.
going to store our information in private blockchains as consumers and businesses in the future, like would I, instead of having my, Google Drive or iCloud Drive, would I store that at, you know, Brian Burke private Ethereum network?
No, it'd be more like there's an app that comes out that everyone prefers to use instead of Google Drive, and you don't even know it's on chain. That's what's going to
Okay.
happen. Or
Or Google
Google's going to
Drive goes on
release a
chain.
new.
iCloud goes on chain.
There you go.
All right.
There you go. It's one or the other. And that iCloud goes on chain, it's about a 50-50% chance. It's company dependent if they do private or public.
Got it.
BlackRock has decided to do some products on Ethereum because they offer those products to the public. But they're not going to put their allocation on chain if that is their intellectual property, right?
Okay.
Their strategy, their research. So they might have an internal accounting system that they make a blockchain, because that's all blockchain is. It's a new accounting principle,
Like a
standard,
database.
method. Yeah, that's all it is. It's database 5.0. It's a new type of database, a new structure, a new data architecture. So that's all it is. They could decide to do that on their own, and other things that they want publicly accessible that's not intellectual property, they would put on a public chain,
Makes
including part of
sense.
their balance sheet on Bitcoin. That's taking cash and putting it on chain in a asset that is in my opinion, poised to do better than cash in the long
Yeah.
term. If you're not going to do anything with that cash and you have billions of it, you'd want it to do something instead of being printed away by the federal
Well,
government.
we were just talking about what to do
Which
with cash, and yeah, it's like get that cash invested. Don't want to miss the next run, and whether you're into stocks or crypto or whatever it is, you're probably better off getting your money invested and not having it sit and lose money with inflation. I mean, inflation's been steady at 3%, but that means you're losing 3% a year for sitting on the cash.
time in the market versus timing the market.
Yeah. All right,
It's
little
better if you got to be long.
little pivot
So,
here. Wanted to go talk since we're talking about Google Drive and Apple. I got a couple of great updates about Google and Apple.
okay,
So
yeah.
Google just announced their numbers the other day, and they had lower revenue than expected. But I think the biggest thing hurting their stock right now is actually a China antitrust that just came out. And it seems like China, just with these Trump tariffs, is all of a sudden targeting both Google and Apple to kind of hit back at the US. So Google's antitrust
Mm,
is, on their search, and Apple has an antitrust that's not officially filed, but it's suggested that it's pending unless they do some changes, which I don't know what they are. But supposedly they're going to have antitrust about their app store fees, which have already been contended in other countries. Epic Games been fighting them
yeah,
hardcore on that. So this is not new news, but it happened the
right.
day that the Trump tariffs went into effect on Tuesday. So it's retaliation. There's no other way to spin it besides that, based on the timing. And it is concerning. I mean, the fact that it could have a meaningful effect on the stock, at least in the short term, but long term, still very bullish. But I think that we need to be mindful of what does China do to kind of come back at the U.S. companies to make us feel a little pain with these tariffs. Obviously they don't like them, so they're doing what they can.
Unfortunately for China, they are kind of not in a position at all. For those who do not know about China, I'm your macro guy. They are struggling about 5 to 8 times worse than us. They've had
They need
almost
us.
4 trillion, yeah, 4 trillion of bankruptcies in their real estate market. They've had a consolidation of their banking sector as big as ours in '08. They are doing worse than us in probably circa 2009. They are struggling. If you go look at their markets, they are getting wiped out billions a month.
I've
So
seen
it's
that.
like,
But however, their
yeah,
GDP is going up because they're pumping in so much money.
I was about to
If you
say,
if you
yeah,
put enough money in, the
go to
GDP
their
goes up.
liquidity. That's right. That's what we're doing. We printed 20%. We maintained a debt to income ratio of 102, 103, 101%. That's inflation, guys. That means we had to borrow 1 to 3% more than we spent every year from the central banks. That's what inflates the dollar because you're getting more money supply, and that in turn increases the
Yep.
GDP because that money increases
Gets
prices.
spent.
That means you have to spend more, yeah, to get the same unit of thing. Like a dollar of apples 100 years ago looked a lot different than today. So that you need more dollars for the same unit of good. And now we're at 120%. Japan is at 200 plus percent.
Wow.
China is north of 150%.
Not
All they're
sustainable.
doing, it's not. The whole world is in debt to each other
China is
and no
doing
one
some
can
cool
pay.
things though. I saw the other day that they came out with the world's fastest train. goes like 500 and some kilometers an hour. That's 300
It's
miles per
crazy.
hour. I need to do more research about this, but one thing I thought was really interesting is they made an artificial sun, and it's already over 1,000,000 degrees hot. I don't know what they're doing with that, but it sounds really intriguing. I know if we can harness the fusion powers of the sun in the future, we'd have more energy than we know what to do with.
Infinite. Yep.
So I don't know, but
That's what they're trying to do.
they're building some interesting things over there with all that cash they're spending.
100%. I'm not saying don't count them out, but their economy is
Yeah.
propped up by our consumerism.
Yep.
It is
So true.
1,000%, and most of the world
Yes.
is. That's why tariffs are so
they can't hurt
impactful.
Apple so hard that we can't have Apple iPhones made in China because they need us to make them in China.
And Trump is doing whatever he can to get Apple to move their stuff here. And that means making it so painful. They're going to, like, Apple could lose. Like, if Trump, just hear me out. I know you're an Apple maxi, okay, but hear me out. There could be I'm making a pitch for a discount for you in the future because I'm long Apple, right? Temporarily, what could occur for some good prices in the future, because that's all we look for here, is the tariffs put so much pressure on Apple that they pass the price over to the consumer. The product gets so expensive, they lose marginal market share to other devices out of necessity, not desire. I think we could see a lot of people saying, I hate Android because I'm using their stuff for the first time and it makes no sense. Right? I think that potentially could happen because he's talking about 100% tariff to China.
That would hurt.
Like,
At the 10% tariff, it's only like a 12-cent earnings
not a
per share
big.
reduction. I saw something they had to raise the iPhone price maybe $60 to counter it. But Apple is taking measures in their own hands. I mean, Tim Cook, the CEO, he's the supply chain guru of the world, and he's moving a lot of production to India already. Supposedly, they're going to be able to produce enough phones in India to supply most of the US, which is all that matters, so that China could supply the rest of the world without having that tariff affect them.
There you go.
But I mean, Europe could
wonder
have
if
their
Tim
own
was smart
tariffs
enough
on
to think about
China. I
that.
mean, anything could happen with this trade war. It's going global at this point. So
All I know is the US dollar is the best weapon America has been building the past 60 years. All Trump has to do is just think, just imagine the word sanction, and everyone is going to jump in
capitulate.
tow because sanctions means you can only buy oil from one of three people: the Middle East, Russia, or China. Maybe India. I don't know how much. I don't know their oil reserves, to be fair,
Maybe
but
Canada.
because maybe, but no, Canada with NAFTA agrees to do all trade in dollar. So when you get sanctioned, you
Got
cannot
it.
use US dollars. And up until March of 24, OPEC had a 50-year agreement to only sell oil in dollars. So you can
Wow.
only buy oil from another country that is willing to violate basically US agreements with the Middle East, which is just going to be foreign oil that can be denominated in that currency. And guess what? They're going to set their own price. So
Yeah.
Russia might make a plus 100% return selling to you. So you're not going to be able to afford oil, or you're not going to be able to get access to oil, depending on your allegiance to us, at the word of a sanction. No oil, no machines, no
No
infrastructure, no
energy.
energy.
No nothing.
Your people die. So the word sanction is the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, thanks to how prolific the US dollar is as the global reserve currency. And no one has ever pushed the button. And Trump just threw it. He was like, is this thing even working? He's like slamming it.
Trump has an executive
And
order every 10 minutes, it seems like.
yeah, and he's literally Colombia wouldn't even take one plane of refugees. He said sanctions. You're sanctioned. I don't care. And like,
6 hours
no one's
later.
ever uttered that word. Yeah, they're like, no, please, please, please don't. I'll fly myself
Yeah,
over there and get them.
I think the
Like,
president sent his
he sent
personal
his
jet.
plane. He did. Yeah, he did. I
He
bet he
changed his
offered to be
tune.
on the plane.
One
Oh, you
counter
have
to
to.
this whole thing is and I'm not anti what we're talking about, but just want to throw it out there to everyone that the strong U.S. dollar affects a lot of these multinational companies. So Apple, as an example, gets around 60 to 65% of their revenue internationally, and their CFO hedges against it. But the strong dollar can have a very negative impact. And if the dollar went up, let's just say 10% stronger, well, then their earnings might be down 6-7% on a sequential basis, only because of that currency risk. It's nothing to do with the actual business. Same number of iPhones sold. So there, and then I don't think Trump or the government's taking that into consideration. But as an investor,
No,
we need to
probably
be
not.
mindful of that international exposure, and especially Apple with the China exposure. Their iPhone sales are down in China for a multitude of reasons. The government is hampering it in China. They are not allowing government employees to use iPhones. They're also promoting the Chinese companies like Huawei. And thirdly, Apple doesn't have any of their Apple Intelligence in China because Apple blocked ChatGPT as their intelligence partner. And I'm surprised they haven't got another, partner like a DeepSeek, I guess, for example, would be a good one. I think they're going to sign something up soon, but no word yet. But we got to make some changes there to get Apple back growing in China.
Just a little theory crafting. Trump wants to buy 1 million Bitcoin. Put that against the dollar. Long term, I think that could create immense pressure for the exact thing that you just talked about, for companies like Apple to take a serious look at custodying Bitcoin. Because if
Well, yeah, if you get
the
100 billion in cash, I mean, you put it in something.
and if the US government does it and the dollar does improve juxtaposed to other currencies by a significant margin, just for everyone that doesn't know, El Salvador has just been buying 1 Bitcoin a day. They're only doing that for 1,000 days, and they have literally been in black for 5 quarters for the first time in 60 years.
Wow.
So imagine America buying 1,000 Bitcoin a day every day for 1,000 days to get 1 million Bitcoin, what that would do to our balance sheet in the long term. Short term, it'll be volatile. They buy every day. Dollar cost average is what I
Yeah.
talk about all the time. Doesn't matter. In 10 years' time, the dollar could have actual health. And like compared to all these other countries, that could cause immense pressure for companies to just buy more. I mean, I don't see how
If
this little
people
mind
take
virus.
Bitcoin as a currency that's getting used more and more, does that hurt the dollar though long term?
I don't think that'll ever happen. And I am pissing a lot of people off on the internet all the time by telling them that Bitcoin will never do that. And I have a very well thought out reason as to why, and it can be
If
summarized
20% of
just
transactions move from the dollar to Bitcoin, the dollar is used that much less. It's less of a worldwide currency. Why does it maintain its popularity as the Bitcoin grows significantly?
I'm saying Bitcoin will not be used as peer to peer transactions. I don't see
Okay,
it competing for the dollar's place at all,
just
ever.
a store of value.
Yeah, I think that's its only purpose. It could easily be a 7 to 8 figure asset as a store of value. It also doesn't have the technical capability for providing that service at all, ever. If you're pissed at Fedwire taking a month to go from Nigeria to America, you would be destroyed at Bitcoin just for buying coffee if you're competing for 160 million transactions every 10 minutes of a block at 7 transactions a second. You would be waiting, and I did the math on a recent YouTube video on my channel. It would take roughly 234 months to process that coffee transaction. That's
Wow.
that's math. So Bitcoin is not technically able to handle that kind of volume.
Yeah. So you're never gonna
That's
go to
why
Starbucks
Ethereum
or
exists. No. Now, what you could see is a stable token, a US dollar representative
yeah.
on like Tether, right? A stable token being used on Hedera that can do 1 million transactions per second. And you would just use that as a payment rail. If you were Visa, you could literally just make the Visa infrastructure or copy Hedera and make it private. I don't know what they would decide to do. Either way, you could use Hedera's technology to facilitate the exact same thing. Have all of your stuff on chain. You could use Solana. Solana's probably fast enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, there's Bitcoin could never,
So
and I
so
mean
so it
never.
makes sense. So yeah, the US dollar can remain strong, keep growing, why the altcoins, maintain their infrastructure and spending there. Okay.
Well, the altcoins are, yeah, I mean, basically altcoins are just tokens on top of networks. These networks all do different things. Another example of what I mean by that, of the diversity of blockchains, you could have Airbnb for your GPU. That exists. It's called Render. If you
Hmm.
just have a gaming computer sitting around and you want to make some extra money, you can plug it into the wall, download the Render software, and then get paid in that token for letting strangers use an encrypted runtime on your GPU. And you get paid for every second it's running on someone else's dime. And they buy the on the other side of that transaction, they're buying Render to rent your GPU when you're not gaming on it.
Yeah.
That's simple.
How much
So
money
it's
can
a
you
way
make
to
in a month if you
coordinate
have one computer?
resources.
How much money in render can you make? Is it like $10?
It's
Is it like
so
that? Like
it's an amount of render. There's
I
a
know,
pay
and I'm
rate.
like,
It's
yeah,
all
if you spin that
every
back to the,
I know.
I'm just curious. Like,
It's
what do you make on one
the
computer?
token's volatile on a range. It depends on the GPU. I don't know. I would say anywhere from $10 a month to $1,000 a month, depending on the price of render and the GPU that you have.
Okay.
Um,
More
I have an
reason for
old
people to
gaming
buy Nvidia
computer.
GPUs. You can rent them out on render.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you buy a dope 4060 RTX and you're playing video games in 4K and you love it, you could sell that thing primo, make hundreds of dollars a month when you're in sleep. Like,
I mean, people might as
seriously
well
consider
do
it.
this. I mean, if you're a gamer and you play games for an hour a day, well, there's 23 more hours that your sweet machine sitting lonely.
If you were running for 23 hours and they're pooled and you had a 4060 or 5080, you could make thousands a month probably. You'd probably be getting hundreds of render a week, and they're
Sounds like the Mac man might need to
you know,
build a
they're
PC. Jeez.
yeah, I mean it. And dude, render's just one of them. There's another
Yeah.
competitor that's, there's GPU. You could do it to Filecoin, Arweave. There are so many, because that's the fundamental principle I want everyone to understand before we close it out here, because we're going long. Blockchain is a way to coordinate humans and resources. It is a way to replace intermediaries. If there is a resource and a human that wants it, and there's an entity in between those two parties, blockchain can replace that entity, period. It is a coordination tool, it is a resource management tool, it is an incentivized tool. Like, why would I even want to plug my computer into a wall? Because I'm going to get paid to do it. I
Yep.
mean, that's how it helps coordinate. And I don't know, it's going to change everything, but Bitcoin can do none of this. It doesn't have smart contracts. It doesn't even have the logic for what people envision Bitcoin to do. Not only does it not have the torque and horsepower, it doesn't even have the vehicle. It is a wheel.
Got it.
Like, you're not winning the Indy 500
It's a
with a one
garage.
singular wheel. Yeah, yeah, like, yes, it is meant to sit there and, like,
Yeah.
not do anything. And it's built like that.
You
And
got
that's
you
what
got to
makes it
bring
so
bring your own
valuable.
car.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, this has been an
Exactly.
exciting episode. We've, taught people what's happening in the altcoin, Bitcoin world, all this stuff happening on blockchain. Very bullish about the future of blockchain and all the companies in the AI space. So I think people should, keep looking at these AI companies. There's so much potential. Oklo, Nvidia, Palantir, they are booming. Keep your eyes out, folks. Bullish skies ahead. Cheers,
See everybody.
everyone.
Bulls. That's a wrap on today's episode of Bullish and Beyond. Remember, the market never sleeps and neither should your ambitions. Whether it's stocks, crypto, or just leveling up in life, stay focused, stay bullish, and keep charging forward. Keep your energy high and your mindset bullish. This is Beery the Bull, your AI co-host, Brian the Mac Man, and JT Knows Things signing off. All content published by Bullish and Beyond, LLC reflects personal opinions only and is provided for informational purposes. Please conduct your own research and discuss with your accountant and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The information presented should not be taken as financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Nothing you hear, see, or read in our content should be considered as any form of financial, investment, or legal advice, or a solicitation to buy or sell any assets, or to make any financial decisions.